Kakalosh Boker Tov, we're continuing Daf Tzadichet Amud Aleph 98a1. However, though, we're just going to start from the Gemara on the bottom of Tzadik Zayin Amud Bet 97b. We were talking about the three different opinions in the Mishnah, right? Whether it is the Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon. If you remember, we said that according to Shitat Tanakama, if somebody was reading, right, on top of a threshold, they were reading Kitvei HaKodesh, any type of Tanakh, whether it was now all of a sudden it rolls down. So he said you're allowed to bring it back up. The same halacha would apply on the roof. The difference in the roof was that if it didn't get into the 10 tfachim from the bottom, you're allowed to roll it up. Once it gets to the bottom, within the 10 tfachim, it's going to be a problem. Shitat Rabbi Yehuda is that even if it went until the bottom, but it doesn't actually touch the floor, even if it's going to be a very, very small amount that it's not touching the floor, you're allowed to bring it back up. And according to Rabbi Shimon, even if it is on the floor, you're allowed to bring it back up. But Shitat Rabbi Shimon, that there was nothing that was decreed in front of Kitvei HaKodesh. Now the Gemara is going to ask the following. Okay, we're on the Gemara on Tzadik Zayin Amud Bet, the second last line on the bottom. Hay iskupa hechidami. What is the case of this iskupa? Remember, the iskupa is the threshold, that a person's on top of a threshold. If you want, I could share with you the screen just so you see the threshold again. This is the threshold, right? What exactly are we referring to? This is called the iskupa, the threshold, right? So he says over here like this. Okay, so it says the Gemara. If you're going to tell me that this skupa is considered a Reshut Yechid, and that's what you have here actually. It's considered a Reshut Yechid because you have 10 tfachim tall and 4x4. That's why these words say Reshut Rabim. Let me see, I could put it here for 250. There you go. These words, this is Reshut Yechid. That's what it says here in Hebrew. 4x4 tfachim, that's the orange, and the 10 tfachim is in the white. So this is considered a Reshut Yechid, a private domain. And this is considered the Reshut Rabim, the public domain. So he says, if you're going to tell me that it's the Iskupa is considered Reshut Yechid, the Kamer Reshut Rabim, and then in front of it is the Reshut Rabim, the Lo Gazrin, and we're not going to make a decree, Dilma Anafi, maybe it's going to fall. Not and you're going to come and bring it, right? So who is that? That's Rabbi Shimon. There has to be Rabbi Shimon. Why? Because then here we're talking about, it says here, Daman, Kol Davar Shum Mishum Shut, right? We're on Tzadichet Amud Aleph on the top, 9081 on the top. Anything which is Asur Mishum Shut, is not going to stand in front of Kitvei HaKodesh. So says the Gemara, let's see the Sefer then. The last part. The last part says, Rabbi Yehuda says, as long as it's going to be, even if there's going to be a small space, you're allowed to bring it back up to you. Rabbi Shimon says, even if it's going to be on the ground itself, you're allowed to bring it back up to you. So says the Gemara, says what? The former part of the Mishnah and the latter part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon. Both of them are Rabbi Shimon. And the middle is Rabbi Yehuda. How does that make sense? Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda says the Amurar of Yehuda, yes, you're right. Reisha v'Seifa Rabbi Shimon, the former and the latter part of the Mishnah is called Rabbi Shimon. Metziata Rabbi Yehuda, and the middle part is Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah?
Even though it's a Zusha Yachid and goes to a Shusha Rabin, they're going to allow it. It's a Carmelist we hold, I thought.
Yeah. That's what I think we're going to ask now. We're going to get to the Karmelit now. Okay? So he says over here, that's going to be the answer. Yeah. Okay, so says the Gemara, Rabba says, here he says, no. Really, we're talking about an iskupa, which is going to be trampled upon by a whole bunch of people. And since it's going to be trampled upon by a whole bunch of people, so therefore he says it's a bizayon of Kitvei HaKodesh. And therefore the rabbis...
You have a picture? Tried before?
No, this is already later on. Okay. No picture. It just means that people are just walking by here.
Oh, they're walking on this thing?
Yeah, no, you're right. There's no picture. Yeah, fine. So now it says the Gemara, so Abaye comes and he asks the following question. Toch arba amot golo etzlo. He says, if it's within 4 amot from the Reshut Rabim, you're allowed to bring it to you. Chutz arba amot, and it's going to be outside of the arba amot of chol aktav, so you just turn it around. Now, if you're going to tell me they were talking about the people are trampling on it, mali toch arba amot, mali chutz arba amot. What do I care whether it's within the 4 amot or outside of the 4 amot? Right? Why is it going to be permitted or prohibited? Right? That means if you're going to be carrying it 4 amot and Reshut Rabim, that's why it's going to be a sur. So what do I care? Right? In both of them, right? You're only going to be over an Isur Drabanan because since the beginning part of the Sefer is still in your hand, so therefore the rabbi should permit it, right? In order to get rid of the bizayon of the Sefer. Just like they told you that you're allowed to take it from the Reshut Rabim to the Reshut Yachid. So answers the Gemara, you're right. Elaman Abaye, but rather Abaye says, and this is this one, Hacham and Skin, what are we dealing with? Rabbi Skupa Carmelita Skinan. The Skupa itself is considered like a Carmelit. Why is it considered like a Carmelit? It says over here that it's going to be 4 by 4 and it's going to be 10 tfachim tall. Ushut Rabim over lefanan. The Reshut Rabim is in front of it. So here, this is this picture. Okay, 1,050.
What's the difference in the thing there and the one before it?
This is a Carmelit because it's less than 10 tfachim.
Oh, got it.
Right? If it was 10 tfachim, so then it's a Reshut Yachid, a private domain. Now that it's less than 10 tfachim, this is called a Carmelit. So there's like it's not a private domain, but it's in the middle. It's a middle ground. So therefore, it says over here, Toch arba amot, if it's going to be within the 4 amot, the nafilu maitila, so even if he would have brought it, there's no chiyuv chatat because it's not a Reshut Yachid. So basically, it's going from like a Reshut Rabim, a public domain, to a Carmelit, which is a Darabanan. So Shalal Banan, they permitted it. But if it's outside of arba amot, the maitila, that if you would bring it back, you're going to have a chiyuv chatat because now it becomes doraita. So Shalal Banan, they did not permit it. Okay, until here we're all clear?
Yes.
Fine. Yehachi, if so, says the Gemara, Toch arba amot, within the 4 amot, nami nigzar. We should also make a decree. Dilma me'ayel min Reshut Rabim, Reshut Yachid. Maybe you're going to bring it up from the Reshut Rabim to the Reshut Yachid. Yeah? V'chi teimana, if you're going to tell me, Kevin the Masechet Carmelit, since there's a Carmelit, let lamba, there's no problem with it. V'amar Rava says, Hamavir chefetz mitchilat arba lesof arba, ve'viro derech alav, chayav. Imagine right now you're going to take a chefetz from the beginning of 4 amot to the end of 4 amot. Here you have this picture, right? This is the 4 amot, starting from here, right, till here. This is the 4 amot. Now, what happened was, though, you were taking the chefetz, the object, right, on top of you. What does that mean on top of you? Here, from here, the bottom till here, there's more than 10 tfachim. Well, obviously, because the guy obviously is more than 80 centimeters. Yeah? So 80 centimeters is 10 tfachim. So therefore, he was taking it on top of his head. That's where he was transferring it. Now, he went from the beginning until the end of the 4 amot with this object on top of his head. Okay? So
What
now,
is that object?
a book, anything. It could be anything. Yeah, but he's traveling in Reshut Rabim. That's a Reshut Rabim. Okay? So here it says over here.
I mean, he's carrying it in a non-normal manner?
Well, he was taking it above the 10 tvachim. So says the Gemara, though, he's still going to be chayav chatat. Why? Because when he's ma'avir chefetz derech makom tur, right, he's still over in isur doraita. Okay, so that's what he says over here. So he says, because he says here, he still did the akira v'anacha, which means that he still did the akira v'anacha in a normal way. It was only afterwards that he actually just put it on top of his head, but he's still going to be chayav. So says the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Biskupa aruka. Right? We're talking about a very, very long iskupa. So therefore you're going to remember it in between. No, we don't.
It says here the issue is if an object passed through an intervening exempt area, it does not alleviate the prohibition.
Yeah. Again, this one does not have a picture. But basically, it's an iskupa, which is very long. Oh, well, you could use this one, for example.
Yeah.
It's a very, very long one, right? Even though it's not the same picture, but yeah, it's very long. So therefore, since it's long, by the time you're going to get to it, you're already going to remember in between. That's what it says here. The Masechet zman lichato leorech iskupa, you're going to remember that it's a isur toraita to bring it from the Reshut Rabim inside the house, and therefore you're not going to actually bring it. Or if you want, you could answer another answer. It's not aruka, it's not a long one. Stam kitvei hakodesh, Stam kitvei hakodesh, you just look inside of it, but you leave it afterwards. So therefore, we're going to say that if it does fall and you're going to pick it up to bring it inside, you're going to stop in the middle, which is in a Carmelit, to stop to read in it. And therefore, then you're going to bring it inside the house. So therefore, in such a case, you're not over in Isur Doraita. But remember, Isur Doraita is only if you go straight. The fact that you stopped in the middle, you stopped. So now it like makes a sec in between. So says the Gemara, maybe you're going to stop in the Reshut Rabim, look at it, and then you're going to bring it into the Reshut Yachid. Yeah? So he says, Hamani, who is this? Ben Azai, that he says, that according to him, it's that even when you're walking, it's considered that you stopped. And therefore, what happens is, according to this, even if it does fall within the 4 amot and you bring it back, there's no Yisud Doraita, because the fact of the Kirat Vanachat Gufo is like a Kirat Vanachat Chefetz as well. So therefore, it's Ki'ilu, the Ker, the Sefer from the Reshut Rabim, and you put it into the Karmelit, and then again from the Karmelit to the Reshut Yachid. So therefore, you never did Odoraita. You only did the Rabbanan. You went from the Reshut Rabim to Karmelit, which is the Rabbanan. And then the Rabbanan to say, you were walking the entire time. You never stopped. No. But Me'alech Yomed Dami. So says the Gemara, V'din Mazarek Lu Mizrak. Maybe you threw it. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Modeh ben Ezra Bezorek. He agrees that if you do throw it, it's going to be a problem. So Amar Ravada Barava says Ravada Barava. So to minute, you see from here that Em Mizrakim Kitvei HaKodesh. You're never allowed to throw Kitvei HaKodesh because of the kavod, which means that it doesn't exist such a case of throwing the Kitvei HaKodesh because it's not kavod to start throwing things in the Kitvei HaKodesh. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, Haya Koreh Berosh HaGag. Imagine right now you're reading on the top of the gag, on top of the roof. Okay, and all of a sudden it's rolled over. Okay, so what are you supposed to do? You turn it around. Okay, so he says, Umishari, is it permitted to turn around Kitvei HaKodesh? V'atanya, we learned in the Braita, Kotveh Sfarim Tfilin Muzuzot, people which are Sofrim, which they write, Sefer Torahs, Tfilin Muzuzot. Lo itiru lahen lafoch yiri al paneh, ala pores aleha et habeged. You're not allowed to start turning it around. What you're allowed to do is just put a clothing on top of it, but not turning it around, because it's also bizayon. So answers the Gemara, hatam efshar, hacha lo efshari. There, you could put a clothing on top of it. Meaning, I have right here the Kitvei HaKodesh, which is flat. Yeah, so what am I allowed to do? I'm not allowed to put it backwards, because it's not kavod. What am I allowed to do? Put something on top. So I'm going to take a clothing, put it on top, no problem. That you're allowed to do. But I cannot come and put it upside down like this. So says the Gemara, right, there's a huge difference. Why? He says there, I can do that. I could put a clothing on top of it, and there's no problem. Here, it's midair. How am I going to put a clothing there? Vilo apich, and if I'm not going to turn it around, then there's bizayon and kadosh tvei. Then there's even more of a bizayon. So that's why you're allowed to do so. Okay? Next, of chol aktav, right? You're allowed to come and turn it around, but you're not allowed to bring it up. So says the Gemara, vehalonach. It never rested in the Reshut Rabim. It was only, it fell into the avid, into the airspace of the Reshut Rabim. It never rested in the Reshut Rabim. So says the Gemara, Rava says, Bekotel Meshupah. We're talking about a slanted wall. Okay, that was this picture. The slanted wall. So therefore, since it's talking about a Kotel Meshupah, which is a slanted wall, okay, so he says over here, Verosh HaSefer is Nachal HaKotel, right? So therefore, it's considered like it was Nach in the Reshut Rabim, and you're not allowed to bring it back up
It's
to you.
considered what?
It's like Nach, it's like resting.
Resting on the Shusha Rabim?
No, well, it's resting on the kotel, which is not straight. So therefore, since it's mishupah, it's considered that it's resting in the Reshut Rabim.
Meshupah? Slanted?
Mishupah slanted, yeah. That's that picture right there. You see the slanted wall?
I do see it.
There you go. Okay. Because here he says that there's well, obviously, if it's a flat wall, it would just go straight down to the floor. But for example, if it's going to be mishupah like that, let's say the entire sefer would fall out of your hand, and it would actually be on the wall, and it wouldn't actually fall on the floor, because it depends obviously how much is the slant, but maybe it could stay there.
It says that it came with intent to fuck them off the ground.
Yeah. Okay. So now the Gemara says, yeah, Amar le Abaye says, why are you saying that it's a slanted wall? In Masechta, let's see the Sefer. Yudah says even if it's not going to be misulak minar, it's not going to be from the ground, just like a kimlo machat, you could still bring it back to you. He says, 1 second, it's nach. It's resting in the Reshut Rabim. So says the Gemara, we're lacking, and this is what you have to learn. But when are we talking these words, bekotel meshupah, which a wall which is going to be slanted. Aval, however, though, Masechet Eruvin Daf, 98b, bekotel sheno meshupah, if it's not going to be slanted, lemala mishlosha, if it's going to be above 3 tfachim from the ground, so you can bring it back. If it's going to be below, then of chol aktav, then you actually turn it around. The Yudah says, even if it's not going to be misulak minar, it's only in the machat, because you need that it's resting upon something. So Rabbi Yehuda argues in Tanakama, and he holds that any type of an object which is found in the avid, in the airspace below 3 tfachim from the ground, you still need hadacha on something.
What's that? You rest on something?
Yeah, it has to still rest on something. Because usually we say levud. You remember about within 3 tfachim from the ground? It's still not enough. It has to be resting on something. Okay, it can't just be in the airspace.
So if it's not resting, can we turn it over?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's when you turn it over. So he says over here, that you need hanacha when it's going to be, hanacha means being placed on something, within 3 tfachim from the ground. Why don't we just say it's machlok tanaim? So says the Gemara, no, you're right. The entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. We're lacking part of Mishnah, and this is what you have to say. But medvarim, one of these words, right, in a wall which is slanted. If it's not going to be slanted, even if it's going to be less than 3 tvachim, you could still bring it back. Because Rabbi Yehuda used to say that even if it's going to be just a kamlo machat, kamlo achut, which is going to be mamash like a thread, you could still bring it back to you. My Tama was reasoning, because we need anachal gabe mashu. We need that it should be resting on something. Okay? Now we go to the Mishnah. So this is a Mishnah, the first Mishnah to the Chet Amubet, 98b. Ziz shelifnei achalon. When you have here it's a ziz, which remember the ziz was like a protrusion. Here it's like an eden achalon. It's like a windowsill but going outward, right? So here you have the ziz on the chalon.
Or a ledge.
A ledge. Okay, a ledge. So you have a ledge. Okay, now, again, one more time. If the ledge is 10 tfachim tall and 4 by 4, right? That means 32 centimeters squared. So then it's considered Reshut HaYachid. Remember that, okay? So ziz shelifnei achalon, notnin alav and notnin mimenu b'Shabbat. So you could put things on it, and you could take from it on Shabbat, and there's no problem whatsoever, right? Why? Because it's like a Reshut HaYachid. So here I'm in my Reshut HaYachid, I'm in my house. I'm allowed to put something here and take it out. Big, in, out, in, out. Why? Because this is also considered a private domain. Okay? Says the Gemara, Hi ziz ledmeikpak lehecha. Where is this ziz going out to? If you're telling me it's going out to the Reshut Rabim, lechush dimanafi, what to do? Maybe it's going to fall and then you're going to bring it back in. Ela demapik Reshut HaYachid. Obviously, it has to be that it's going to Reshut HaYachid. Okay? So says the Gemara, so pshita, obviously, saying the entire thing is a Reshut HaYachid. This is a Reshut HaYachid. This area also is a Reshut HaYachid. So obviously, it's not this picture. No, they don't have another picture either. Okay? So therefore, what are we talking about? So Abaye says, you are going to the Reshut Rabim. What are we talking about? You're allowed to put things there. Things which are broken, which means something that broke, you're allowed to put over there. Why? Because even if it's going to fall, it's going to break. So we're not going to suspect that you're going to, kelim hanishbarim, which they could break. Not that they're already broken, sorry. Right? Which means that things which could break, because that means if it's going to fall, kaddish, well, you're going to start bringing it back. You understand? You're not going to do that. So Tanya Miyachi, we also learned it in Raita. Yeah, it's delicate or fragile. Yeah, ziz shalifnei achalon and Reshut Rabim. We're talking about a ziz, which is in front of a chalon, which is going out to Reshut Rabim. Notenin lav, karot v'kasov ketunot tzchoyor. You're allowed to put on it cups, right? The plates, pitchers, flasks, all these things. You're allowed to use the entire wall, right? That's what it says over here. You're allowed to use the entire wall, ada sarat tachtonim, until the 10 tfachim from the bottom. So that's what it says over here. You could use the entire wall, which means you could use this one, but you can't use this one. This is until 10 fachim. So you could use these 2 ledges, but you cannot use the bottom one because this is within the 10 fachim. Okay, if there's going to be one ziz below the 10 fachim, which is this one over here, okay, mishtamesh bo, you are allowed to use it.
As long as it's more than 10 off the ground.
Right? Uvalyon en mishtamesh bo ela kineg chalono. But the top one, you can only use the one which is kineg the chalon, which is this one.
What does that mean? Why can't
opposite the window?
Why not? Why can't you use the higher one?
The Gemara is going to explain. Hai zizechi dami. What are we talking about? Idilet be'arba. If you're going to tell me that it doesn't have 4 tfachim squared, so makom ptur. So it's a makom ptur. It's a place. It's not a Reshut HaYachid. It's a makom ptur. So you shouldn't use it even in opposite your window because you're taking it from your private domain to a makom ptur, which is a sul lechatchila. V'it be'arba. If it does have 4 by 4, bekulekot, you should use the entire wall. So Amar Abaye says no. Tachton de'it be'arba. The bottom one has 4 by 4 tfachim. Elyon let be'arba. The top one does not have 4 by 4 tfachim. No. Yeah. Tachton de'it be'arba al arba. So this is the bottom one. The bottom one does have 4 by 4 tfachim. Okay. Ve'elyon let le. The top one does not have it. And then what happens? Right? However, the window is making it become 4 by 4. Yeah? Meaning this bottom one has 4 by 4. The top one does not have 4 by 4, but the window is mashlim. It's completing the 4 by 4.
So if it's opposite the window, you're okay on the sides.
So keneged the chalon mishtaresh, you're allowed to, but the chorech chalon, that's considered the chalon. The haigisa sur, but on the sides, it's going to be prohibited. On these sides over here, that's where the red is. I don't know why, again, that if you zoom, no, but if you zoom too much in, it doesn't become clear. So you want to get a good picture, because if it's going to be now, this is 207, even if you go 200, even if you go this is 150, not even 100%. You don't understand anything.
Could be.
You can't see any
could be
details.
Well, no.
Fine. Okay, next Mishnah.
I don't recall in Masechet Shabbat. This is.
Is it the Yotzer? No?
It's interesting.
Okay, fine. Says the Gemara. Sorry, this is a Mishnah. Omed Adam b'shut hayachid v'mitaltel b'shut harabim. Okay, so we could already stop because there's no more pictures. So Omed Adam b'shut hayachid v'mitaltel b'shut harabim. A person could be standing in the reshut hayachid and he's going to be mitaltel in the reshut harabim. Okay, so a person could be standing in the reshut hayachid. He's going to be mitaltel, right? He's going to start carrying an object in the reshut harabim and to take it from one place to another. Or b'shut harabim u'mitaltel b'shut hayachid. He's going to be standing in the reshut harabim and he's going to be mitaltel b'shut hayachid. Uvilvad shelo yotzi chutz me'abamot. As long as he's not going to take it out of the 4 amot. Right? That means he cannot walk 4 amot with it. Okay? Lo yamod adam b'shut hayachid ve'yashtim b'shut harabim. A person cannot be standing in the reshut hayachid and urinate in the reshut harabim. Okay? Or b'shut harabim ve'yashtim b'shut hayachid. V'chein lo yaruk. So it's not only just urinating, it's also, how do you call it when you're taking out the phlegm? Spitting out, yeah? Okay, Rabbi Yehuda says, Af mi shenitla shruko befiv, even if it's already in the mouth, in order to take it out, lo yalech ba'amot hashru. So imagine right now a person already has the phlegm in his mouth. He cannot walk 4 amot unless also he takes it out of his body. Because basically once it's out, so it's not considered any more part of him.
He has to swallow it, in other words. Because
No, here he says he could actually spit it out. Achirok, he's allowed to spit it out.
Is there a time, no?
No.
No,
You're
you're
not
allowed
spit
to.
it out. You're carrying. If you spit it out, you gotta spit it out. But
No, so don't spit it out outside of that's what he's saying, outside of from the Reshut Harabim to the Reshut Yachid, but within the Rabamot, you can spit it out. What's the problem? He says the words, Achi Yarok. What is Yarok? He doesn't say Achi Yivla. It's Achi Yarok. So here it says here, Vehu Adin Shlelech Reshut Leshut Kodem Sharok Otomipiv. Well, not only in the Reshut Harabim itself, but also from one Reshut to another Reshut. Same thing. Okay, let's see the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Mati le Rav Chinan bar Shlemya, taught Rav Chinan bar Shlemya, Lechia bar Rav kamed Rav, Tochia bar Rav in front of Rav, Lo yamod adam b'shut hayachid v'mitaltel b'shut harabim. When it says over here, this person should not be standing in the Reshut hayachid and be mitaltel in the Reshut harabim. Yeah, what are we dealing with here? Amar le shavakt rabbanan ve'avad kerabimid. Says what? You left the rabbis, right? The shitat chachamim, you're doing like Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir was the one that says that it's a oser mishum gizra, but maybe you're going to take it into another reshut. Right? Just like we said in his name in Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph. The chachamim argue on Rabbi Meir. And halacha is like the chachamim. So says Gemara, Usavad, he held that since the Seifa is Rabbi Meir, right, which means the Mishnah over there, since the Seifa there is Rabbi Meir, right, so too the Reisha is also Rabbi Meir. And that's why he said, but it's not true. The Seifa is Rabbi Meir, but the Reisha is Rabbanan. Okay, so therefore our Reisha was like Rabbanan and not like Rabbi Meir that says that it's going to be Asur. So therefore this is Shitat Rabbi Meir.
he's the minority, though.
Exactly, that's why. No, because basically we said that since the Seifa was the latter part was Rabbi Meir, also the former part was Rabbi Meir. He says it's not true. The former part is Rabbanan and the Seifa is Rabbi Meir. And that's what we're trying to say. Right? And then I guess tomorrow we're going to explain about this entire thing about the Roch and, how do you have to get it out of all these things. I
Chazak u'baruch.
apologize for computer problem.